Welcome to Module 1 of the Milliunits Data Collection Methods course. In this module, we will introduce you to foundational concepts of data collection, including different types of data and data collection methods, when we collect data, and other important data collection considerations. Let's get started. Before we jump into data collection methods, let's do a quick recap on program goals and objectives and the role data collection plays in our strategic planning process. Remember that a goal statement is a broad statement about the long-term expectation of what should happen as a result of your program. This is the change you want your program to create. Then we have our objectives, which are the changes our program will need to accomplish to reach the desired goal. From there, we have our indicators, which are the measures of change that our program aims to achieve. And finally, we have our data sources, which are the data collection activities we use to measure our indicators. The wide variety of data sources available to us is where we're going to focus in this module and throughout this course. Now that we've recapped how we use data collection in our strategic planning process, let's talk about different types of data we may be dealing with. First is primary data, which are data collected directly by an investigator, researcher, or other staff of an organization. We may also be dealing with secondary data, which are data that have already been collected by other organizations. But data can also be quantitative, which are data represented numerically, including anything that can be counted, measured, or given a numerical value. Or data can be qualitative, which are non-numerical information such as words, images, and observations. So how do we collect these different types of data? There are a wide variety of data collection methods available to you, but we're going to discuss the 6 most common you will likely employ. The first is administrative records, which is when you collect information, generally from either your own records or that of an implementing partner, that has been created for the purpose of program planning or implementation. This is one of the most common methods of data collection. Administrative data have not been planned for the evaluation. The purpose of the creation of the records was different, generally for the planning and/or implementation of the program being evaluated. Examples include information found in participant applications, or recording a participant's attendance in a workshop within the exchange program, or others. Administrative data provide background information, generally both quantitative and qualitative, about the program being evaluated. Next is surveys. Surveys are a structured series of questions that respondents are asked according to a standard protocol. A survey tends to include mostly closed-ended questions, but can also include open-ended questions as well, usually to explore or better understand responses to closed-ended questions. A quick note that we will discuss open and closed-ended questions later in this course. Surveys are primarily a method of quantitative data collection, though survey questions can be either quantitative or qualitative in nature, and can measure coverage, i.e. who received an intervention, satisfaction, perceptions, knowledge, attitudes, and reported actions or behaviors. Next up is interviews, which is a structured conversation, usually conducted one-on-one by an interviewer, who asks an interviewee about their knowledge, experiences, feelings, perceptions, and preferences on a certain topic. Interview data may include information about body language, group dynamics, and tone in addition to what is said. Interviews are a method of qualitative data collection. Similar to interviews is focus group discussions, which involves a skilled moderator who stimulates discussion among a group of individuals to elicit experiences, feelings, perceptions, and preferences about a topic. The moderator uses a list of topics to be discussed, ensures all voices are represented, and keeps the discussion on track. Focus group data may also include information about body language, group dynamics, and tone, in addition to what was said. Focus group discussions, or FGDs, are a method of qualitative data collection. Then we have direct observation, which entails an observer who records data based on what they see, hear, or touch, often based on a guided protocol and usually conducted during a site visit. Examples include observation of skills-based performance and observations of a physical environment or setting of an intervention. Observation is more often used as a method of qualitative data collection, but can also be used for quantitative data collection, especially when focused on the number of occurrences of a specific item, event, or action. And finally, we have electronic data harvesting, which encompasses data collection of electronically generated data. This could include a record of people's actions in an online environment, like number of downloads, texts, usage of apps on mobile devices, or social media data, like tweets on Twitter or comments on a Facebook post. Electronic data harvesting can be considered a method of both quantitative and qualitative data collection. So when do we want to utilize these various data collection methods? The simple-ish answer is that we utilize all of them throughout the life of a program. But let's take a closer look at what that might look like. And we'll start with program planning. During program planning, we may want to collect information about participants to determine programming needs, in which case we often rely on administrative records, usually applications, and pre-program surveys. We might also want to establish a baseline through which to measure change, in which case we almost always use pre-program surveys. Now, let's take a look at program implementation. An important part of program implementation is often monitoring the health, safety, and wellness of participants, which is commonly done through surveys. But we may also want to take a look at whether the program is being implemented according to its design, which we can do through observation. Depending on the length of the program, for instance, a full academic year program, you may want to consider measuring progress toward your program indicators at the program's midway point. And finally, we have post-program. Following the program, something we may want to do is a more thorough look at whether the program was implemented according to its design. We can do this through a number of data collection methods, including surveys, interviews, focus groups, and observation. We will also want to measure progress toward our program indicators, which we can do through surveys, interviews and focus groups, and electronic data harvesting. For example, monitoring social media mentions of the program. As we wrap up, let's take a look at some other important data collection considerations. First is frequency. How often are the data needed, and with what frequency is the data expected to change? For example, in-person surveys can take a long time to administer and analyze, therefore they are more appropriate for monitoring outcomes that won't change rapidly. Next up is rigor. How rigorous does the data collection need to be? Not all monitoring data need to be the same level of rigor. For example, observational data collected during site visits can be helpful in identifying implementation problems. For measuring an outcome indicator, however, such as change in perceptions of the United States, a survey of participants would be more appropriate. We also want to consider analysis and ask ourselves, how will the data be analyzed? Data collection and analysis are directly Consider data analysis plans while selecting your data collection method, so that you have exactly the kind of data you want to analyze. Also consider personnel. Who and how many people will be needed to collect, process, and analyze the data. Different data collection methods may require a different number of personnel with varying qualifications. For example, staff who excel at tracking administrative data may not be well suited for facilitating focus groups, and vice versa. Local context is another important consideration. Is the data collection method appropriate in the local context? For instance, in rural areas, electronic surveys might not be possible due to limited internet connectivity. And finally, we have cost. Is the estimated cost of the data collection method reasonable? High and low cost methods both have their place, but high cost methods should be reserved for when rigor or timeliness is of greatest importance. All right, that's it for our module on data collection methods. When you're ready, you can head back to the training overview and move on to Module 2 on data collection ethics and informed consent. See you there.